The Jackson Street Roundhouse and Shops in St. Paul, Minnesota are very unique, so let's show you why. The St. Paul and Pacific Railroad Company was the first railroad to build in the St. Paul area, running a line north, then west to St. Anthony, near modern-day Minneapolis. For more information on this milestone, check out my video on the completion of the St. Paul and Pacific Railroad between St. Paul and Minneapolis. The new railroad had some of their shops where the line turned west toward St. Anthony. This 1874 map of St. Paul also shows the St. Paul and Pacific Railroad line, and the black star shows the location of its shops, just west of Mississippi Street. In 1879, the St. Paul and Pacific was absorbed by the St. Paul, Minneapolis and Manitoba Railway. The Manitoba Railway also took over the Mississippi Street shops, which included an engine room, machine shop, blacksmith shop, 2 car shops, 2 paint shops, a tin shop, storeroom, and an office. These shops were all constructed of wood. The Manitoba Railway employed quite a few men in its various departments, especially in the machine, blacksmith, and car shops. The total number of men employed was 452. By 1880, the Manitoba Railway began planning for a new complex of shops to handle their increasing business, and they would be located along Jackson Street. About the same time, the Manitoba was also planning to build a huge stone arch bridge across the Mississippi River in Minneapolis. So their Jackson Street shops took a back seat to this project. The construction of this stone arch bridge was fascinating, and I have another video on how it was completed. It is definitely worth a watch. The jewel of the new Manitoba Shops complex would be a new roundhouse, which was completed in early 1882. At the time, James J. Hill was the vice president and chief executive officer of the Manitoba. Colonel Charles C. Smith was the chief civil engineer, and Captain Charles C. Renschel was the roadmaster, who was in charge of all the buildings for the railroad. The new roundhouse was 275 feet in diameter, had space for 40 stalls, it was made of stone, heated by steam, and had an iron turntable. It featured 5 inner brick walls, which created 5 separate compartments. If there were any fires in the building, it would be hard for them to expand. The Manitoba contracted for 40,000 perches of stone for the new shops. 1 perch of stone was 16.5 feet long, 18 inches high, and 12 inches thick. That was a lot of stone. The type of stone selected was St. Paul blue limestone from the Platteville Formation. The limestone was mined at Patrick Kelly's quarry on Dayton's Bluff. Michael O'Brien was hired to deliver the stone from the quarry to the Jackson Street location. O'Brien needed a lot of men and teams to complete this job. O'Brien also had the job of laying the stone in the new buildings. Michael O'Brien had built up quite a reputation as one of the chief contractors in the Northwest. He was known for his work on the State University and on the Robert Street Bridge. This is a photograph of the buildings at the University of Minnesota, which were also made of stone, and the Robert Street Bridge, which also would have required stone masonry. In late 1881, there was a huge fire at the wooden Manitoba Roundhouse on Mississippi Street. The roundhouse held 12 locomotives at the time, and 7 of them were damaged. The loss to the company was about $44,000, which would equate to about $1.4 million in 2024. A later issue of the St. Paul Daily Globe noted that the fire chief had kept the brass bell that melted at the burning of the Manitoba Roundhouse as a souvenir. The rest of the Manitoba shops were completed in 1882 into 1883. One of these shops was a boiler and blacksmith shop. This shop was 60 by 275 feet, was made of stone, heated by steam, had a board floor, skylights, an iron roof, and had electric lights. There was also a large machine shop. This shop was 112 by 300 feet and featured the same components as the other buildings. The building with the L was the car shop. The car shop was 100 by 250 feet, with the L 80 by 200 feet. Again, featuring the same building components. Surviving blueprints for this building are shown. Along the main tracks was the storehouse. This building was 40 by 400 feet and was constructed in a similar fashion. To the west of the storehouse was the coal house, which was 40 by 120 feet. Lastly, south of the storehouse was the pattern house. This building was about 30 by 50 feet. There are also surviving blueprints of this building. In combination, the Manitoba Railway spent about $250,000 on its new shops. This would be about $7.8 million in 2024. This was the 1884 map of the Jackson Street shops and roundhouse, and this was an 1883 hand drawing of them. The Manitoba Railway became the Great Northern Railway in 1889. This map from 1891 shows that an extension was added to the south of the original car shops. Otherwise, the 1891 map provided another perspective of the roundhouse, boiler and blacksmith shop, machine shop, car shop, storehouse, oil house, and pattern house. The Sanborn Map Company produced this 1903 map of the Jackson Street complex. Finally, this was a 1916 map of the complex made by G. M. Hopkins. It shows that a portion of the original roundhouse was torn down. There was also a new brick roundhouse to the east of the original. This brick roundhouse was completed in 1907 and had 25 stalls. It looked somewhat similar to the picture shown to the left. The 1916 map mislabeled the machine and blacksmith shops, so I swapped them back to match all the previously shown maps. This is an aerial photograph from 1923. This is an aerial photo from 1945, where you can see most of the original stone roundhouse has been torn down. Here is an aerial photo from 1953. This is a series of photographs taken of the complex before most of the buildings were torn down. Here's an aerial photo from 1991, which shows a portion of the brick roundhouse torn down. Finally, this is an aerial photo from 2024. Let's look a little closer at the area within the red box. On the right side is the remaining section of roundhouse, which wasn't one of the original stone buildings. This is known today as the Jackson Street Roundhouse, a portion of the Minnesota Transportation Museum, which is open to the public. For railroad or history lovers, this museum is definitely worth a visit. There are only 3 of the original stone shops left, which were completed in 1882 and 1883. Come along for a look at how these buildings looked in 2023. That concludes the video. Make sure to check out my other YouTube videos and my primary website at mnbricks.com.